So my name is Mike Duerr. I did the program 2015, 2016. And I work now for the U.S. Department of State as a program manager. I manage our education cooperation agreements with several different countries for several of our educational programs, some student exchange programs and others. So some of you may have heard about the Fulbright program fellowship. That's one of the programs. I don't directly manage, but I manage the agreements that we have with nations, other countries, to send our Fulbright scholars abroad. Um, a lot of what Martha said, I agree with totally about what the program meant for me and why I chose the program, what I got out of it. Um, I'll kind of tell a little story because as I was applying for grad school programs, as you learned from David, Tel Aviv University has a large amount of international programs for master's students, and one of them was security and diplomacy. And at this time, I was actually working as a contractor for the U.S. Department of Defense in Israel. I was working in Israel, working with a lot of DoD and Department of State and Ministry of Defense officials. And I was talking to one of my colleagues about, I'm applying for grad school at Tel Aviv University. I'm looking at the security and diplomacy program, as well as this conflict resolution mediation program. And my colleague was like, "Oh, you got to do the conflict resolution mediation program." I was like, because I was kind of leaning more towards security and diplomacy. He's like, "Yeah, I get it. Like, you want to go into government, you want to do diplomatic stuff, security and diplomacy sounds great, but you said, and I tell students this today, when you go to Washington, D.C., and you say, "Oh, I got a master's in security and diplomacy," people are going to just look at you and be like, "Okay," like those are two very ambiguous terms in a city built on national security and diplomacy issues and politics. But conflict resolution mediation, those are very specific terms. People know what those things are, and they know the value that can bring to the table if someone has that experience and academic knowledge. And he told me, people also have a misrepresentation or idea, not necessarily negative, but like of what that is. And so he really kind of pushed me like, go do that work. And it really did. I think along the lines with Martha, I don't think there's a day that goes by in my job that I'm not utilizing something I learned in the program in my day-to-day work. And it comes from all the way from interpersonal, um, you know, resolving that issue, all the way to, managing the multi-party, negotiations and agreements and trying to corral and build and facilitate, problem solving. Because ultimately, and this is what I've told employers and potential interviews or networking or whatever, is knowing the practicalness of being a problem solver in the real sense of doing it either at an interpersonal level all the way to at an organizational level. And there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of depth that goes into that understanding and being able to facilitate and build relationships and solve problems that this program covers in a very wide, diverse way, but in a very meaningful way. So to this day, I think I still have conversations with a handful of my professors. I still talk about what I learned from the social psychological approaches to conflict resolution with Dr. Khan, or with political approaches to conflict resolution with Dr. Klein. And Martha, I think you agree, like our international law class with Daniel Reisner was always a popular one. And like I'm very glad that I'm still in contact with him. So I can't recommend the program enough for any of you. If you are looking into understanding what it really means to be a mediator, what the opportunities really means for you when it comes to being a mediator, but then also understanding the complexity of conflict resolution beyond, I think, kind of the general understanding of alternative dispute resolutions and peace building, which you all will cover and learn about, but how you can apply that to almost everything that you do. And like I said, I use it every single day. I think the biggest lesson I learned is moving from position to interest. You will learn about that more depth in the program, but If you can understand and move everything that you do in conversations with people from position of interest, you're solving problems.